Interview with Michel Houtermans in Paris, February 4th, 2008. Prior to the emergence of the IEC 61508 standards and IEC 61511 for the processed industry, could you indicate what standards or guidelines were being used?
Before the IEC standards, the industry was mainly governed by two German standards, DIN 19250 and the so-called 0801 standard. DIN 19250 is actually comparable to Part 1 of IEC 61508. This standard would tell an end user how much safety he needed in his factory. At that time, safety was expressed as Anforderungsklasse, AK level, or requirements class in English. Once the end user knew how much AK he needed, he would use the 0801 standard to develop the products. The developers would then take the AK class and actually make sure that the system would comply with the AK level.
What limitations existed before the IEC standards were available?
Before the IEC 61508 standard and 61511, safety products were mainly developed according to 0801. This standard was very prescriptive. It told you exactly what to do without taking into account how much risk you really had in your plant. That is something that's nowadays being fixed. Today we have risk-driven standards. The more risk you have, the more safety you put into your safety products and into your plants.
What key distinctions did the IEC standards bring to support the professionals dealing with functional safety and safety instrumented systems?
The IEC standards made the safety world a much more complete world. Instead of looking at an individual product and the technology inside, IEC made sure that we looked at the complete life cycle of a plant. So we started with the design of the plant, understanding the hazards and risks, and based on this we started to develop safety systems. Now, in order to do that, the standard included management of functional safety, something which did not exist in the previous standards. Another key distinction is that besides the technical requirements that the standard puts on the safety function, we now also have to calculate the actual performance in terms of probability of failure. So on the other hand, we have a life cycle approach. We understand how much safety we need from a plant point of view, and we verify this at the end by calculating the performance of the safety loop.
How would you compare the deterministic and probabilistic approach when a safety solution is designed?
That is a very good question to ask. I think nowadays it's not so much anymore to choose between a deterministic and a probabilistic approach. Today we're doing a little bit of both. In the past we had a very fixed way of designing safety systems, no questions were being asked. With the new standards we still have a lot of requirements, technical requirements on the safety system, but we are trying to look at the performance of these safety systems in terms of failure. So the distinction or the difference nowadays is that we try to combine the best of both worlds. We're trying to build correct solutions that don't fail very often.
Is there a trend in the industry, or are there changes in the perception of society that would justify one approach over another?
It's very difficult to say that there is a trend in the industry. I think depending on the industry, but also depending on where you are in the world, people perceive risk and reliability in a different way. If you look at, for example, in Europe, when the IEC standards came out, there was a real trend to only focus on reliability issues. Now this trend, especially in Europe, is shifting. Companies are becoming more aware that just making calculations is not sufficient, especially because the data itself is very uncertain that we need to calculate with. So nowadays in Europe you see that from the old approach to the new one there was a big shift to reliability, and now we start to again look at the qualitative design of the safety system.
From a probabilistic point of view, what could be missing in the IEC standards that would provide professionals with a better understanding of their safety solution behaviors, of the plant behavior?
Probabilistically there are always two problems. One thing is that you need to make the model, and the second thing is that you need to have data to feed this model. Now making the model nowadays is something that we can do pretty accurately. And when you give people the right settings, they will always create the same kind of model. The problem in industry though is with the data. When the data is uncertain, basically you can calculate anything you want. So if you want to make a huge change in industry, you should somehow standardize the data that people are using. Now, this is probably something that is very far sought. So my recommendation to individual companies is collect your own data and be consistent in what you're using, so that you at least can compare your safety functions within one plant to the other plant. Don't try to compare yourself with other companies, because they might have completely different data.
A major accident took place at the Buncefield oil storage depot, North London, on December 2005. It was the largest fire in post-war Europe. Though investigations are still in progress, a number of reports were issued, such as the recommendations on the design and operation of fuel storage sites. In your opinion, what can be learned from these reports, and what recommendations should be considered as high priorities?
Well, look, this report basically showed that, especially in the UK, the government is taking the IEC standards very seriously. As far as I know, but I'm not British, it's the first time that I've seen a report where really IEC 61508 and 61511, the methodologies presented in there, were promoted by this government body that created this report. So you can see that the government is standing behind the new approach in safety. The life cycle approach, hazard and risk analysis, and then designing the proper safety functions using reliability calculations. So that is for the first time that I've seen that this is really being pushed as the way to go in the industry for the future when it comes to safety.
In your opinion, what values should be considered to lead the safety industry to a higher level of conscience? And where should this industry target? What could be improved today?
Well, I think that although a lot of people are still talking about safety, it is still not enough. If we want to make a real shift in safety, we need to create more and more awareness. Not only in the factories, because those people know that they need safety, but we need to push it from a higher hand. We need to make sure that the governments are really starting to support programs, that the top level companies, the top level management in companies really starts to promote safety and not just talks about it. So we need to create more awareness, not only in the industry, but also outside of that, so that everybody starts to talk the safety language.
Do you have any additional thoughts to share?
Now, I think what a lot of people don't realize is that safety really starts at the top. This means that if we want to implement safety in a factory, we need to make sure that management supports us. Of course, in reality, it's the safety engineers that actually implement safety. But if they don't get the right tools, if they don't get the right time, if they don't get the right training, and if they are not supported by their management, you can never expect of them that they do a good job. Now, unfortunately, we're living in a world where the environment today is very much contaminated, let's say, because of production processes. But this gives so much awareness in this world. Everybody is pro-environment nowadays, that we could hopefully see a great shift in the safety business as well. Because what, again, a lot of people don't realize is that all the tools and all the techniques and all the training that we are putting in to achieve safety for people are the same tools and the same trainings that we can use to protect the environment. So let there please be a lot of awareness for the environment. It can only be better for the safety business.